Hey guys, EST here, and you know I don't tend to put alarmist headlines on videos, like, ever. Seriously, in the last 3 years of my channel, go look. But this one merits it. I mean, remember what people were saying when the whole housing market collapsed in 2008, and they're like, this is going to be really bad. But the media likes to cry wolf over literally everything, so people didn't believe it. No, this one is actually bad, otherwise I wouldn't have made a video on it. I usually do instructional, like educational content, I guess you would say. Product reviews, that kind of stuff. I don't tend to cover things that are just going on in the world. That's just not how I've been doing things lately, but this needs to be brought to your attention. And also, you might have looked at the video length. It's kind of a two-parter. This isn't just, oh, here's why the diesel thing is really bad. It's probably going to get worse, too. Okay, bye, have a nice day. I'm sure I improved your day with this information. No, it's what you can do about it. What every single possible angle you can do to address this. What to watch for, what you can do in your personal life. What to know, what to watch for, how it's going to get worse, how it's going to get better. Everything is covered in this podcast, so stay tuned for the whole thing. The diesel shortage. As of today, May 16th, 2022, it's getting really bad. Now, lumber prices got bad too, and it's still going up and down and up and down, and it was just one thing after another, but they can recover. And the COVID staffing issues are getting, less bad, and shipping is getting less bad, but then, a lot of lumber moves because of diesel as well. So, you could just not build things. Projects, expansions, new buildings, they can just be out of the price range for someone. And unless their house just burned down or something, or their business, absolutely needs to expand or they can't operate, you can just cancel projects. The demand can drop as well. With diesel, everything runs on diesel. Everything moves on diesel. Almost every single freight train in America runs on diesel. Almost every single semi-truck runs on diesel. That's how we move everything. Final goods, raw goods, everything in between. So, you can see just food or just lumber or just medication or something go up and you can just kind of deal with it. But when everything goes up because there's effectively like this almost invisible tax because you had to move it to the distribution center, then you had to move it to the store, and everything just gets more expensive, that is extremely bad. That is what they call an energy crisis. So what is happening? Why is it happening? And will it get better? That's what I'm going to cover. I guess let's start with the why, because I feel like that's the most important for people to understand. So first of all, the number of refineries in America has dropped roughly in half, at least capacity-wise, not count-wise, but in the last 15 to 20 years, right in half. So why did that happen? Well, let's go back to the 2008 housing crisis and financial collapse. A lot of refineries closed at that point. Like, we're talking extremely closed, as in not reopening, and because of all kinds of regulations that they were like grandfathered in on, it's really hard to either build a new one or like buy a new one and start it back up once it's already gone. And that's almost entirely what happened there since like 2000. So actually, I do want to insert how bad is it? Well, we're at the lowest amount of diesel just in inventory available for sale right now ever, since they started tracking it at least, which is around the 90s. America usually has 62 million barrels just sitting around, and right now we've got 52. That's a little over 16%. That's pretty significant. So the prices are changing daily, but at the time of this recording, diesel is almost at $6 a gallon. It's in the high fives across America. Now, it's worst in the Northeast because most of it is refined in the Gulf region. And it's got to go up the Colonial Pipeline. So we all know what happened when the Colonial Pipeline got shut down for a little bit because of a cyber attack. But it takes like over 2 weeks for like one molecule of oil to make it from the Gulf to the Northeast through that pipeline. And the time delay causes all kinds of problems, and obviously you need energy to move that much that far. So remember how I said there's usually 62 million barrels on hand and there's 52 million right now? Well, way back in the day, like 2009-ish, we could make 1.64 million barrels per day. What are we at now? 808,000. So almost exactly half. So let's just pretend it was a million a day. Let's just round up. Okay, so it would take about 10 days to redo the inventory, but it doesn't quite work like that. Now, if price increases to the point where demand drops, there you go. The problem is people aren't just like, oh, I'm just not going to go on a road trip. No, these are almost exclusively work vehicles, industrial stuff, moving goods. They have to get there. I'm sure with the current prices, anything vaguely optional, people are already out at these prices. But some businesses are just like, oh, we'll just pass it along to the customers. Inflation's happening anyway. Oh, well, prices went up. It's not always that simple, but if it's something people absolutely need and all the industries are affected, they're just like, yeah, our competition's going to have to eat this too. Whatever. Boxes of cereal just went up 30% or whatever. So that's how bad it is, but let's get to more of the reasons why is this really happening. Well, like I said, closed refineries after 2008, but now we've also got like understaffed or partially closed or lowered capacity, however you want to say it, refineries that are still having issues from COVID. So it turns out when a bunch of staff is home because of an outbreak and you basically have to shut down, or you just can't find anyone to work that bad of a job because now all of a sudden everybody sat home for, a couple months and is like, oh, I actually hate working. Or hate working this job specifically. So not only are they having to pay their staff higher amounts, I would presume, just to work a job like that, but between, training and like just other factors, it takes 6+ months to get back up and running if you're already short-staffed. So you can't just hire someone tomorrow and say, okay, you're showing up to work, do the refinery thing, operate the machinery. It's training, relocating, safety, getting the raw supplies, turning oil into diesel. Lining up the additives, getting the, just everything, equipment, raw materials, just everything across the board, staffing. All that together, 6 months if you're lucky. So that might go away in the near future. Will this get better in any way, shape, or form? Well, I mean, there's a couple things that I'd say yes, there's a couple that I'd say no. This is kind of like the food shortage where it's like realistic but a little bit alarmist. Actually, quite a bit alarmist. I made a video on that if you want to see it. Yeah, America exports about as much phosphorus as they import in nitrogen. So guess what everybody else needs. Also, we as a country and all the other first world countries can outbid everyone. So it might get a little more expensive, but there's going to be enough food to go around. Also, if you stop making useless high fructose corn syrup crap, like, sugary sodas, sugary juice drinks, everything with high fructose corn syrup and candies and all this other stuff that people probably shouldn't be needing, then there actually is enough corn to go around. So if you just see that disappearing where people get priced out of candy, basically, that alone could solve it. Also, you just kind of move down the food chain, okay? Instead of raising cows, you go, okay, we're going to do less of that. We're going to raise pigs and chickens instead because, they take X amount of pounds of feed. And eventually, in this amount of time, it becomes this amount of tasty meat. So you just cut down on cows, you up pigs and chicken, and there you go. Everybody gets priced out of beef, and there's still enough food to go around, okay? So the whole food shortage thing, it's a little overblown. Way more details in my other video on it. But diesel, is this overblown? Is it just, people are just going to stop shipping stupid stuff? Yes, but I would just imagine from what I know, for every person deciding not to ship, a grand piano across the country because of shipping expense, there's probably, 10, 20, 30, 50, who knows, trucks where they just have to get this inventory to Walmart or Walmart is not going to have anything to sell. They don't care what it costs. They'll just up the price. It's better than not having anything to sell. So like I said earlier, I'm pretty sure anybody shipping something really silly, stupid, and that's basically a waste of fuel is going to hold off unless they're just that darn rich. So dumb, luxury, optional, unimportant stuff, that's out. To a certain extent, but I don't think that that's even a double-digit percentage of everything moving right now via trains and semis. So will electric cars save us? Electric semis and all that? No. First of all, they're not electric. They effectively run on coal because they're charged at the coal-firing plant down the street that makes your power. But also, we'd have to roll out 25% electric vehicles like tomorrow or like next month. So no, enough electric vehicles are not going to come out quick enough. They can't be manufactured quick enough. We got the chip shortage, so you can't even make the ECUs to run the dang engines. So no, like rapidly switching to a different fuel source than diesel, not even remotely an option. We're years out from that. It's almost like governments should have put in extreme green energy projects and additional grid capacity first, and then people would just move to electric cars on their own and assisted by subsidies because it's just so much cheaper than gas, and then while simultaneously powering people's houses for cheaper. It's almost like they're doing it in reverse order to cause the most damage and the most suffering and economic damage, which, yes, in my opinion. So let's just say, 90% plus would be my estimate of things being shipped with diesel fuel are very important and need to be shipped. But maybe I'm wrong. Look around at a gas station, look around at like a Dollar General, like some of that is staples that people need and some of it isn't. You could just stop selling stupid stuff because I bet if you took like the top 50 retailers in America and just looked at what percentage of their inventory is incredibly stupid, wasteful stuff that nobody needs, it's probably pretty high. Now, unfortunately, it's pretty high margin items. Food's not very high margin. Toys, stuffed animals, just dumb plastic stuff from China. Yeah, we don't need that to live, and it's an enormous portion of every store's inventory pretty much. So they might be able to say, you know what, important stuff only. Because, first of all, everybody's wallets are doing terrible. Inflation's almost 10% right now. I don't think people are buying things that they don't need as much as they used to, or at least not, lower middle class on down. So it's possible that store inventories, even they could selectively say, you know what? This isn't important. Leave it in China. We're not going to sell it. The problem is they like money. They don't like solutions. They will like shoot themselves in the foot because they're like, yeah, but this is a dumb cheap plastic toy, but we can get $20 for it and we paid 50 cents for it or whatever. So toys, luxury items, random stuff. It's very, very high margin. It's going to be very hard for stores to drop. But if people stop buying it because they just go down to, you know what, we just need clothing, food, whatever, well, then they will stop, and then that stuff doesn't need to get shipped. There you go. But that's a fairly slow process. They do use this JIT inventory system almost everywhere in modern society in general, which is just in time, where they can rapidly adapt to, this sold, this didn't, cut this, don't do this. It's not like, oh, the monthly truck showed up. You could just be like, hey, cut this product off like tomorrow. So that's one little, maybe that'll solve this. I don't know if I've ever heard of that, happening. And it's just kind of my theory with what I know about general retail. It's not like I'm, the CEO of Walmart or something. I guess COO would be a little more accurate. But yeah, that's just my thought. That just is what tends to happen is whenever there's an economic anything or a supply line anything, people resort to just buying, shipping, moving, general commerce involving what they need, and then everything else is cut out because there's either no money, no interest, no room on the truck, whatever. And that did kind of happen during COVID. Now that's a very temporary thing because those things do still need to be sold, kind of. Let's just say a lot of businesses are propped up on that. So that would temporarily take the pressure off a little bit, but it's not a solution. You can't permanently operate that way. But it might cause a tiny rebound. But still, at the end of the day, I mean, if gasoline instead of diesel got crazy expensive, which it kind of still is, you can't just work from home, which people are pretty set up for after the last 2 years. You can't just take your bike, can't just jump on the bus. No, your semi-driver is going to drive the inventory from one place to another, okay? There's no work from home for that. So there's no, let's just adapt, let's just all work from home, let's just get Zoom going, let's just do, remote learning in schools and all this, how long did it take to roll that out? A couple months and it just blew up and became popular? That's pretty impressive. People adapted, but there's no adaptation to trains and semis. There just isn't. Oh, you're just going to find another way to move it? What, sailboats? Are you going to push it across the country? Solar? No. Nuclear-powered trains? I doubt it. So the potential to get worse and the potential things that might kind of alleviate it a little bit or all out, fix it, I still think it leans slightly towards it's going to get worse, which means the price is still going to slightly creep up. So get ready for inventory to not be available and prices to get absolutely insane. If you need something, you should probably buy it right now, but you also, like I said on this channel, probably should have bought it 6 months ago. I even made a video about how to review what you really need and go through your daily life and take notes and what you can't live without or can live without. And I mean, it's even stuff you might not think about, oh, if I don't have windshield wipers, I literally can't even use my car even if it works, even if I have gas, because I just can't get windshield wipers, can't drive in the rain, can't go into work that day. So I've kind of given both sides of this. I generally think it's going to get a lot worse, and I've explained why, but here's the worst part. Absolute worst. There's also a tire shortage that I'm hearing about. So even if the trucks can afford to run, they might not be able to run because there's nothing to roll on. Also, whenever everything gets more expensive, but it doesn't go to one company that can redistribute it through the country and just kind of accelerate the economy, which by the way causes inflation. No, it tends to be going to actual real expenses. It's just going to operating costs and covering the margins. And at the end of the day, the company's making the same or less from charging more because they're producing less. So where's the money going? The same place it was before. It's just the margins are shrinking. So the price is going up while they're actually making less money on it. That's generally an oversimplification of what's happening. So do I think the current administration would loosen up all the EPA stuff and all the refinery and the carbon tax stuff and all that right after hell freezes over? So I don't think they're going to say, oh, we really need these refineries open. They're going to sit there in their delusional, lying through their teeth and everything in between and say, no, this is our opportunity. It's a good thing that people are burning less diesel, which arguably yes, but you can't just cut the supply and switch over. You can't force it in that direction. You have to move people there by making the alternatives cheaper and by subsidizing the new technology to replace the old one. That's the order you do it in. You don't sabotage and not do anything about this problem for 15 years and then just say, well, we'll make it so expensive that people will have to go somewhere else. No, you make this somewhere else better and people naturally go to it. The idiot Democrats have it backwards, and arguably there's a pretty established theory that they're doing it on purpose to crash the economy because they want a great reset. But I'm not even going to get into that. That's a little too conspiracy theory for me, but it's just there are people out there publicly admitting it and saying it. It's just, do they have any influence and is it real? So just be aware that that's an option. This might, all this green crap and all that, I love it because it's unlimited free, energy, basically. America was producing cheap solar, cheaper than like solar panels and equipment, cheaper than China. That went away because the government didn't handle it well enough. And I'd love to stop giving money to the Middle East or Russia, or it's like the worst places have the most oil. But remember, Biden's also cutting off domestic production and all kinds of suspensions on new leases and all this, all because of, the environment and CO2 and blah, 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 blah. While failing to address any kind of international shipping or, ship emissions or concrete or, any of the real causes. Not this, turn off your coffee pot at home. That's going to do something. I think, isn't it like 11% of all CO2 emissions are cars globally total? And China and India together make the US look like we're all walking by comparison? Yeah, sounds like they needed to implement real stuff, not just complain and throw things under the bus that aren't even the problem. But just that's what's going on there. I think they're going to take this opportunity to say, good, we're not going to fire up more, oil processing, more refineries, more oil production, more drilling. They will never, ever, ever do that. But should they? Probably for the next 3 years, yes, while extremely throwing every penny they can at green technology, electric cars, solar panels. If they want to come throw solar panels up on my house and subsidize it by 75% and just say whatever, cool. Although with the amount of inflation and spending and money printing, let's just say it's a really bad time for a government, program that expensive and bold. But they should have been doing it for the last 10 years because then we'd be off of oil. The Middle East would be bankrupt. We wouldn't have to worry about the Saudis and BlackRock and Joe Biden's family and honestly, rich Republicans that are in oil as well. Energy independence would have solved a lot of problems in the background that we're just finding out are problems, just saying. So it looks to me like they don't really want to fix it. It's all a smokescreen. But is that going to stop them from still saying, no, we're doubling down. No more leases, no more refineries? No, absolutely not. They're going to keep doing that. Can't wait for the election in November, but November's a while away, just saying. It's going to be 2023 before we see any kind of effects from that. As far as new legislation and overriding the president, overriding vetoes, that kind of stuff. So political strategy, let's just drop the crap and just do what we need to do. No, I don't think we can count on that in any way, shape, or form at all. So here's why this might spiral out of control. When everything gets more expensive, then everybody has to spend more on everything. And then, the poorest of the poor and the most irresponsible people, the people with the most irresponsible credit card debt or even more irresponsible college debt, don't even get me started, that's the tipping point. They were already paycheck to paycheck. They were already in a bad situation. They were already, not making enough at their job. And then inflation, 10%, everything's more expensive. And now diesel, everything's more expensive to ship. So everything at the store costs more. Well, they start, going upside down on their mortgages, and now we have a whole bunch of empty houses, crashes the housing prices. Then all the rich Wall Street people and everybody investing in houses, well, they're like, oh man, real estate's kind of dropping, geez. And then that's tied to people's, retirement accounts, so anybody retiring, in the next 2 years is going to be in trouble. If this spirals out of control, it's just, you can't just have everybody pay more for everything and then nobody really gets the money, as I explained before. Some people can do it. Middle class on up could probably do it. Tighten your belt, sell a boat, don't buy this, don't buy that. Couple of jewelry stores go out of business and you go on with your life. But it's the poorer people, the ones who are just got a brand new mortgage and now they're like, ooh, and now food's more and we could afford the house, but it was high for us, but we could do it. I got a raise. We got, $10K in savings just in case. But still, and then some of those people get laid off because their company can't afford to operate at all. Well, in fact, right now, truckers are quitting and losing their jobs. So that right there, unemployment. So then if unemployment goes up, then even more people lose their jobs, which means they don't spend as much at places. Then those places go under and you basically get 2008. That took a lot of doing to repair, and arguably they didn't. Look at the national debt. They just kind of put a Band-Aid on it and said, we'll pay it off later, which is what they've been saying for 50 plus years. Then as I mentioned with the food shortage video, which you really should go watch if you're interested in this one at this point, we can handle a food shortage. First and second world countries can adjust and just less meat, more vegetables, and okay, keep on spinning. But third world countries in Africa, where they can barely produce enough food for themselves, import a ton of it, they're just gonna starve in huge numbers. They might think, oh, it's 2022, nobody's in the world's gonna starve. There's so much dang food being produced. And some of the high calorie stuff is the really cheap stuff, junk food. Come on. Well, look at how many people starved in the 80s with China. We're talking tens of millions. That's like higher than the amount that died in the Holocaust. I think more people died from like the farming over-reporting and communist takeover in like the around the 80s in China than died during the entire Irish potato blight. And that was starvation. It's like, okay, that was stupid, irresponsible to rely on one crop. They didn't understand biology. I get why it happened, but look how bad it was. Now look at this more modern example where it was even worse. So sucks for those third world countries. Oh, good. Most of you don't live there, right? Well, guess where your stuff is made. Your raw materials, your, whatever. Your shoes, your clothes, your electronics, it's all overseas, and a lot of it, maybe not electronics, but a lot of other stuff, textiles and steel, wood, magnets, lithium, it's all made in third world countries. All is a little, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but a lot of it. Why? Well, the labor's cheaper. So, they're going to like, Eastern Europe now, Africa, because labor's actually going up in China because their economy's blowing up. A lot of it's fake, and I think they're about to collapse because their real estate is like, well, just look at what portion of their GDP it is and tell me that looks healthy. But okay, now we can't get shoes, like, at all. And now shoe prices go up, then food prices go up, and then these third world countries, now we ought to send them aid, and now there's conflicts, now we have to deal with that. And then criminals take over. Then what happens when criminals take over and a country partially collapses? Everybody starts exporting drugs. Look at the Middle East, look at Mexico, look at Colombia, look at Venezuela, look at anywhere. Your last ditch effort with any third world country is you just bribe or take over, collapse whatever you need, and then you start selling addictive substances and pharmaceuticals, illegal stuff to the last couple rich countries left, and that's how you get mountains of money, and then nobody says anything because without it, your country's going to collapse. So last I heard, and this is a very old statistic, it's like 3 decades old, but 60% of all crime is drug-related due to addiction. We're talking attacks, muggings, even domestics, it's fueled by drugs, drug addiction. So now crime goes way up because it's like an indirect effect where you live because of a third world country collapsing because now they're exporting drugs. And also you have no sneakers. Also you can't afford to go to work. Also the economy's collapsing. Also your house went down in value and you're underwater on the mortgage. It's just you can't have diesel go up and stay that way. The economy worldwide and locally and in the first world and third world and everything in between, all across the board for various reasons, are all linked and they all cannot handle it. And we just can't roll out a new energy source quick enough to replace, hydrocarbon fuels. But the Democrats seem to think we can, or are just lying and trying to blow everything up on purpose. And the Republicans are too stupid and contrarian to say, you know what, we do need green programs because energy independence. And because oil is running out and the time's ticking and whatever. Ignore climate change. It's just like the amount of oil, the expense of getting it, where we get it from. All of that is bad. We need to move away from it. But because the Democrats are saying that, the Republicans have to say the opposite. Absolutely useless. Plus, a lot of them are heavily, heavily funded and influenced by big energy anyway. And they don't want to change. And honestly, 10 years ago, I thought it would already flip. I thought we'd already at this point. I thought one company, which I think the closest we got right now is some things in China and Tesla working on like batteries, solar, that kind of stuff. And even they have alternative motives and weird ways of spending money, and they're not going like full blown, like let's cover fusion plus wind plus batteries. It's pretty much just battery tech and a little bit of solar, unfortunately. But we don't have that. We don't have anyone going, you know what, we're going to roll this out because oil's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So for the next 20 years, eventually we're going to win. We're going to put like Exxon out of business. OPEC, OPEC these nuts, let me just count my money again. Somebody should have went full blown into it, and it should have been one of the international energy companies. Now, some of them are, from what I heard, they're going like, you know what, instead of spending, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 billion dollars on new drilling and this, that, maybe it would be wise to diversify a little bit. We are going to research this and throw in some, stuff like that. Some windmill farms, some, whatever, some, wave undersea turbine tech and that kind of stuff. So they're starting to do it just so they don't get completely blindsided and left behind, but they're not going full into it because it's one of those things where, yeah, you could get out ahead of everybody and be the winner and then just they'll never catch up, or you could completely bankrupt yourself by investing in all this dumb stuff when all the money's in oil because oil's going up and the profitability is higher. So I really thought like around 2005 to 2010 that some company would just be like, you know what? It is a better investment to build a magic device that spits out free money, basically, which is like a solar panel. And we can get to a place where they don't have to be replaced every 7 years and don't cost us and don't have a negative return and blah, 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 blah. None of them really did it. Not really. Not like full-blown, full steam ahead, we're going to throw a third of our budget at this. So what would it take if they started right now and said, you know what, diesel, I don't think it's coming down anytime soon. Okay, now we'll do it? Oh, we're 5 years away from that. Seeing any kind of effect from that. I mean, you can only produce so many, and if it's worldwide, guess who makes a bunch of turbines and solar panels? China. Guess what they're going to do? Keep them and install them in their own country, obviously. And if you think the Communist Party doesn't have that kind of control over China, they absolutely do. They could just say, snap our fingers, it's banned now, you can't export it. We're keeping it all for ourselves. That would be bad. So they really should have been rolling this out since like 2000. I mean, come on. Oh, and we're 8 years out bare minimum from like a functional fusion reactor and then like a wide scale-ish rollout. Some say 7. Right now when they're saying 8, it's probably 16. I mean, you know how fusion's been going for the last 7 decades or whatever. That experimental one out in Germany, it's great. They're making progress, but it ain't going to be tomorrow and it ain't going to be next year. You know what I mean? So the replacement options and how it would realistically work with how supply chains work and how the state of things are right now, not an option. We need diesel, we need more of it, and we need it to work. We're actually at the point where if they were to just say, okay, open up double the refineries, do this, do that, lower the restrictions, okay, pollution and CO2, whatever, but in the short term, it's worth any extra whatever, pollution, CO2, warming, anything that is or isn't going on, to just fix the economy so it doesn't completely collapse and just ruin everything, and then the level of prosperity and economic growth would allow for green tech. Because this is like the big warning right now where people are like, okay, I get it, fine. But we need money, we need a successful economy, we need stuff not nosediving, we need people to be employed to make green technology and have unlimited energy. And to move from renewables now, green energy now, to just full-blown fusion everywhere in the future. Because fusion is the future. I'm not going to get into like nuclear physics here, but basically it's a magic device where you pour in seawater and it spits out gigawatts, millions, billions of watts of energy. And then you use the energy to go get more seawater and ship it, refine it, you put it in centrifuge, get the tritium and throw that in. You know, it spits out oxygen and water or something like that. You know what happens when it melts down? It doesn't. It's impossible. The fuel just burns out. If it loses magnetic cohesion or whatever, shielding, you just have a little bit of an explosion and build another one. That's it. There'll be like 0 radiation or close to it. Fusion is the future, but if they decided tomorrow morning that we're going to roll out fusion, it wouldn't work. We would be so far away. It is not a viable replacement in the next like 10 years for oil. It's just not. So they need to throw money at diesel while simultaneously throwing money at green programs to replace diesel, both simultaneously. And it seems like one of those things one party wants to do, one of those things another party wants to do. So is it going to get done? No. I think the next couple of years are going to be terrible. Then you've got natural disasters, which if climate change is as bad as they're saying, it is obviously happening, independent measurements, okay, it's just, what is the timeline and is it as bad as they're saying? That is what is very, very, very heavily in dispute here. Because according to people 20 years ago, Florida should have been underwater by now and it's not. So, alrighty then. And governments have a tendency to hire only scientists that are going to say exactly what they want and use half the data and make stuff look like other stuff. So we honestly don't know how bad it is or what the timeline is. And that's a shame. But what I do know is the weather in the next 3 years is either going to get way better or way worse. Because remember, last year was a La Nina year, which means the year before that was an El Nino year, if I'm not mistaken. That's, what is it, every 13 years-ish? I mean, I remember this going back to even when I was a kid in high school. It was, El Nino, and then a bunch of crazy, snowing in May, and then La Nina, it's almost as bad, and then we're good for another, 10 years. It's the ocean water, it's this and that, but, if you listen to the worst of the worst climate projections, the Gulf Stream is about to collapse, the whole ocean's gonna die, and we're all gonna die in, 3 years. The truth is probably somewhere in between that, but why am I even bringing it up? Well, because we really don't need another Hurricane Katrina damaging all of the refineries in the Gulf Coast, because that's where they all are. That, on top of what's going on right now, would be horrific. Not to mention the lost farmland, the lost infrastructure, the lost ports when we've got a shipping crisis. A bad hurricane this season would be almost impossible to come back from within reason within 10 years. The amount of economic damage and how precarious everything is right now after COVID and everything else going on, and inflation because the world is being run by morons. Yeah, it would be so much worse than Hurricane Andrew. It would be so much worse than Katrina. The financial markets pretty much are the insurance companies. So that would, it would be insane. So boy, I hope we don't get record-setting hurricanes and hail damage and tornadoes and widespread this and that this year. Be nice if we didn't. Like I said, one group says we're going to, and the weather's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, and the amount of damage going up, which we cannot deal with right now. I mean, we're almost at a point right now with diesel and food prices and shortages where we can't deal with this, period, globally in kind of middle to long term, because of the effects, like I said, on the third world and the fact that everything comes from overseas now. Now, a weather event, a giant earthquake in California, a meteorite, anything on top of it right now, a war, Oh, it would get mad, because remember, there was really only one or two factors leading to every major disaster going back to like the Black Plague. You look at how interconnected and how many like computers we need and how centralized everything is, and how many monopolies and how many companies get everything or 90% of their inventory supplies from one single source, how precarious everything is compared to how it was before 100 years ago. It would be really bad if right now or in the near future, before any of this gets resolved, which I think we're 2 years out from this getting resolved, that's strangely close to the next presidential election. What a coincidence. So now all we need is Trump to drop dead and for DeSantis to run instead, so that we can actually get stuff done instead of half-ass it and ignore technology because he's old. But that might not be soon enough. We need to literally have no giant natural disasters in like the next 2.5 years. So be prepared for that. Oh, and then remember, the peak of the solar cycle is going to be in 3 years, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse until we might get a Carrington event or worse. Oh yes, I have a video on that as well. So what we need right now is the government to get its crap together, very unlikely. No giant natural disaster in the next 3 years, very unlikely. Just from probability, from possible weather anomalies, maybe happening, maybe not. And then the solar cycle peak, and any potential wars. We need all that to not happen in the next 3 years. And even then, it's going to be like a gradual process to fix this. So it just looks bad. I'm going back to the title of this video. It looks really bad. It looks almost unavoidably bad. Every time something has looked this bad that I know of in history, it got that bad. I'm not sure the world could even handle like an uprising or giant economic collapse in China, which is almost guaranteed to happen in the next 10 years. Because like I said, real estate is fake. Their own stock market crashes constantly. Everything's crooked. Everything's fake. Everybody's lying to everybody. Everybody's stealing from everybody. Everything's corrupt. And they produce so much stuff, even if it just went civil war and everybody's like, well, that's nice, have fun dealing with that, I'm staying out of it, and it's just their own little thing. Well, you ain't getting anything shipped out of there then, are you? As much as I would love the world to lose China, we can't afford to lose China right now because they make too much of our stuff, and that's a shame. You can thank the last 30 plus years of rich, irresponsible jerks running every company for that. So I would get your ducks in a row as much as you can, get food for sure, food medication, safety, security, self-protection, backup plans, bug out locations, all the normal prepper stuff, because just in case. Look, preppers look pretty silly in like 2005. Ever since 2008, we look pretty smart. We're looking smarter every year, and that's for good reason. And there's more and more of us, and well, you're here watching this. So, hey, subscribe, obviously. I think my channel is pretty well-researched, based, informed, and non-alarmist. Unless, like in the case of this video, there's a really good reason to be alarmed. So I don't mean to scaremonger, and yeah, there could be something I don't know about. If I knew every angle and every factor of everything happening globally, economically, government all together and could put it all together, one, I'd be a computer, and two, I'd probably have a position in some government somewhere. Because I'd be better than anyone anywhere, so I don't think a human like that exists. But from what I know of like 1,000 hours of studying history and reading news articles and staying up on stuff and researching cause and effect and just case studies and all this stuff for my entire life, my general opinion is that this doesn't look good and I don't see a way out of it. Now remember, everything was going to crap until Trump came in and said, you know what, I'm going to fix the economy and fix gas prices. But then COVID came in and ruined it, and a Democrat came in and made it worse. So, like, could we just have the right people come in and fix all this economically, at least for just America? Possibly, but let's just drill everywhere, make more hydrocarbons, all that, and pretend like it's never going to run out. That's not a strategy either. Now, that said, if I'm not mistaken, the last Republican administration threw a lot of money at green tech, though. So, I know who I'm voting for. Even though I very, very passionately hate both parties. But the Democrats are like, that's a no. That's a hard no. I don't care who they are. The liberals and the far left have lost their damn minds. Morally, economically, logically, everything. They are an absolute circus. And if you vote for one, you are part of the problem. But if you think that permanently handing the reins and giving the next 10 elections to Republicans because that'll solve it, you're out of your damn mind. I'd vote independent before I vote Republican if I thought they could win, and I'm not throwing my vote away. I think a lot of moderate Democrats and people in the middle and independents are going to vote independent this time. We might have a true like third party-ish or a four-party system if it goes, ultra-liberal, traditional Democrat, and then hyper-moral conservative, and then traditional big business Republican. So, I mean, those would all be positive ways to move. That would move us to a good place. But, like, how does that help next month's diesel prices? So, boy, you better buy up stuff now. If you have something you don't need, sell it and buy stuff you actually do need. You got to start moving stuff, and you got to do it now. If you don't like your job, you're about to lose it. You don't make enough. You don't like your house, move to a smaller one. Like, you got to get this done real quick here. And I'm not saying, if you're perfectly comfortable and happy with everything, well, it's all about to go to crap, so take drastic action to sell your house. No, you don't have to put your new Lexus up for sale and buy a, Honda Civic with the muffler dragging because I said so and you need 30K in the bank and need to spend it on food. I'm just saying, if you're not in a good place career-wise, make a change. Apply for those other jobs. Move to a different position. Go for a promotion. Stop covering for your worst coworkers and let the consequences happen and throw them under the bus. I've been doing that, and one just got fired today. I wish I was kidding. Look, I'm a nice person, and I help people, and I give people a lot of chances, and I'm not the troublemaker at work, but at the end of the day, when my whole team's getting yelled at for not doing enough work and stuff constantly going wrong, and they're blaming us collectively, guess what? I'm done with that because that's going to get me not a raise. You know what I mean? I'm also thinking about selling my house and moving because my house is worth a lot more than it was when I bought it. Even I'm considering all these things. I actually got a different job that was closer because I didn't trust fuel prices and I just did it last year. Plus, I purposely left one job and got a job at a place that, cannot close. Okay, I always throw these under the bus, sorry if you work there, but I don't sell boats and I don't sell jewelry. Okay, nobody needs those. Well, okay, fishing industry, okay, whatever. But jewelry, come on, nobody needs that. If you work at a jewelry store right now, you might want to work for, a fire department or I'd say government, like a local government post office, something like the post office ain't going to close. You're not going to get fired because the post office closed. Not necessarily, but I don't know, like a hospital, the government will come in and run a hospital. Maybe get a military job. But I mean, if you're in a sensitive front line, oh my gosh, I'm going to get hit the hardest first if this all gets way, 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 way worse, which like I said, I don't see a way out of it. If you work at a place that sells something stupid, go work for a pharmacy, an insurance company, depending upon the type. Get something where that they will be the last thing to collapse. Society will go with it if you're working there. One of my friends used to work janitorial, okay? You can just let things be dirty if your company's losing money left and right, okay? You don't need janitorial to an extent. You can just tell the existing staff to do it or they're getting fired. It's just an easy thing to keep people happy and retain the best talent and not piss people off and blah, 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 whatever. Well, guess what? If things are getting tight, you're cleaning your own damn desk and you're taking your own garbage out, okay? And the floors and the floor mats are gonna look like hell. Oh well. I wouldn't normally call that a luxury service, but what do people cut first, okay? A lot of janitorial staff lost their jobs right after 2008, just saying. And now let me just give the counterexample. I'm not trying to panic you here. If you're a dentist, you make enough money. People are going to stop going to the dentist if they don't have money. It just is what it is. It's really expensive. So if the economy gets worse and worse and worse, inflation gets worse, diesel gets worse, supply lines get worse, everything gets worse price-wise, and everybody has to kind of cut back, dental's going to get hit hard, but also you make enough money. I wouldn't say, oh, well, go close your dental office and go do, I don't know, become a policeman or something, or join the National Guard. No, just save a ton of money. Stop spending dumb stuff and sell anything you don't need to make sure you're not way in a bad place on your mortgage. You can prepare if you're high class enough to have the resources, just shift stuff around, change how you live, be smart about it, and have an enormous amount of money, resources, and supplies, okay? But everybody out there, I would very strongly assess where you're at, what you're doing. If you're retired or on the verge of it, or you're on disability, you're getting Social Security, that kind of stuff, and now diesel's going up and you're not going to be able to afford anything, and you're going to get kicked out of your house, your apartment, whatever. Potentially that's more on the horizon in the next couple of years, because it is. You might want to, start working a part-time job, look at some kind of work from home thing. Most of them are scams, but there's still some you can do. Just get trained on some little side hustle. Get a new skill or something, You could maybe do customer support from home on the phone. You could, take surveys at a respectable place, because most of those are scams too. My big one, I would recommend this to everybody, is just go to thrift shops, go to, rummage sale, garage sale, tag sale, yard sale, depending upon where you live, and flip it on eBay. Okay, that's the hottest thing in the last couple of years. I got into it. I've kind of always been doing it, but I got way into it. First year, $5,500 profit. Just doing it part-time. You learn everything there is to learn about clothes within reason, and you start flipping clothes on eBay. Oh, that's hot. Plus, you'll be getting the lost sales from people who sell, $90 jeans. They're going out of business. You'll be fine. I know somebody who's not very good at what they do, to put it bluntly, and they still make 60 grand a year doing eBay full time. You got to kind of live in the right place near a good thrift shop, but I live near multiple, and I turned that into a business. In fact, I still, I know IT, so I used to flip computer parts. Just go to the recycler, buy a pallet full of laptops and desktops, sell the parts, put them together, sell them on Craigslist, whatever. That was good money. That was 10 grand a year on average. And it doesn't really take that much to learn all there is to learn about electronics, vintage stuff, board games. You just get into your thing, acquire them, and flip them. It's really easy. You work at your own pace. I'd recommend it to anyone, almost regardless of knowledge, disability, age, computer abilities, anything. And if you work part-time, or if your wife stay at home, but the kids aren't, 1 year old anymore, maybe just work into that a couple hours and do some kind of work as you go kind of thing. Learn how to cut hair, learn how to groom dogs. It's really, really, really easy to learn that. And then you just put an ad out there, undercut your competition, do it dirt cheap, get a bunch of clients, and suddenly you're making 5,000-10,000 an extra. There you go. And you can either save it, spend it, buy supplies, whatever. You're now in a good place. And even if you're at like a so-so job where you're worried about, oh man, what's this going to do? You didn't have to go through the stress of leaving it, getting retrained, changing industries, all that. Okay, so there are options to supplement your income. You just got to say, you know what, we're going to do it. Instead of sitting home, being lazy, this, that, the other thing. I get it. Everybody's in different situations, but you can pick up these little, do it from home, low training kind of stuff. Well, in fact, you go watch, I'd say Photoshop tutorials, but Photoshop is really expensive. So the GNU image manipulation programmer, there's another good free Photoshop alternative out there. You learn photo editing and touch-ups, you can just go on like Fiverr and do it. Drop $200 on a nice mic and a mixer like I just did. Actually, mine was cheaper than that. Open a free software called Audacity. Boom, you're on Fiverr. You're doing services. You're doing voiceovers. You're doing, I don't know, whatever. You quick learn how to produce music, and you can sell tracks to people, custom tracks to YouTubers. $50 track, easy. Learn how to edit videos. Oh, there's some demand for that. I mean, there's all these things that you can learn really, really quickly if you just put in the effort. And now you're making bank just working a couple extra hours every day. Heck, summer's coming up. If you're like, wow, the economy looks bad and we just want a little extra buffer, or it actively is getting bad, in June, July, who knows, and you've got a 14, 15-year-old teenager at home, guess what? They're learning how to do those services. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to all be you if you live alone, or if you live in a household especially. Start recruiting other people. Okay, this is what they did back in the day. This is what they did ever since they landed in the 1700s in America. It's like, you get the kids working on the farm. I'm not saying resort to child labor. I'm just saying if it really came down to it, people sitting around doing nothing, or you getting laid off from your job and feeling bad for yourself, or, oh no, I make the same amount at my job, and now with inflation and costs and diesel and food, we're effectively making less. What do I do? What do I do? You or someone else in your household or friends or whatever start working a different job. Now, the other thing is we could go like the Spain and Mexico culture route, which I think this is a big thing in Russia. Honestly, half the world, this is a big thing. It's huge in Africa. You don't have grandma and the kids and the grandkids all living in separate houses. That's kind of inefficient. You just say, you know what? Well, in fact, in Russia, it's usually friends from what I heard. You just say, you know what? I want to live on my own and have a roommate and have enough room and blah, 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 blah. But, well, I also like not going bankrupt and getting kicked out of my house. So I am going to move to a slightly bigger apartment and just get 1 or 2 roommates. Family members, people I can trust, people that aren't going to be a problem. Maybe I will rent the upper floor. Maybe I will rent a bedroom. Maybe I will do this, do that. I mean, if you can take your mortgage, electricity, internet, and cut it in half. I mean, what portion of your paycheck is that right now? Food doesn't scale that way, but my gosh, is the solution in case of emergency ever. You know what? Fine. Me and a friend, we're both in a bad situation. We're about to lose our houses. They're just coming to live with me and paying half. Boom, problem solved, done. People are just, they don't think that way anymore, and they don't look to other countries. They're just like, oh, that's the dumb poor people way to do it. That's the other country. Well, guess what? Now you're poor and the economy's collapsing. So if it really came to that, just keep that in the back of your mind. Maybe talk to people about it ahead of time. Especially if you know they're not doing well, they just lost their job, or they're having trouble keeping up with expenses. Just say, hey, you know what? You move in with me. You can have this bedroom, or you can sleep on the couch. You can do this. You can do that. You can sleep in the basement. We'll just put in a little effort and make it livable. It's partially finished anyway. We'll throw a little insulation in the attic and some crossboards, and now you got an attic bedroom kind of ish. Boom. You want to talk about cutting your expenses without actually losing anything, except for a little bit of privacy, quiet, and oh no, I live with another person. Just have these things in the back of your mind just in case it gets really, really bad. I'm not saying do it right now because it's hard to undo, but like even in 2008, I heard of siblings like right out of college, they come back and they're like, oh man, this sucks. I can't get a job. Everybody's getting laid off, so everybody has 15 years experience and I'm not getting hired. Oh, what am I going to do? Well, you move back in with the parents. You call up a sibling or a cousin and say, hey, or high school friend, hey, you want to live together? Just split everything down the middle? I did that in 2008. My best friend, we got an apartment together, and boy, was it more affordable than anything I got quoted solo. It's just this little trade-off to be as close as you can get to making your life operate normally, in case things get bad. So, still, would I move in with someone and split an apartment? If they worked at a jewelry store? No. Because they're going to lose their job and I'm just going to pay for everything, okay? Not going to happen. So you got to kind of address it all. You got to make sure you're secure, cover your butt, have backup plans, have side hustles, have stuff where you can just work more and make more on the side just in case. Just in case you need more, just in case there's a shortage, just in case you need a car part and it costs triple now. You got to have this scale up, scale down instead of just, I make this salary, the end. Have that discussion with people, have roommates, have people contribute. You just say, if it got bad, would you be into this? And most people would say, yeah, I'll go, couch surfing. I could pay, $300 if I just can't afford food and just want to ditch out on my current lease of my apartment. You got to have these discussions. And the one big thing that a lot of people already, if you haven't done this, got out ahead of you is if it's possible, get good at gardening. Okay, the last 2 years were like the demo years where people are like, oh man, shipping, COVID, ooh yeah, food supplies. Yeah, food did go up and food processing plants did close. It didn't get as bad as we thought. But like you can reasonably grow a lot of beans and potatoes in a very small amount of space, and beans and potatoes are just about the easiest darn thing in the world. When people say, I tried gardening and I failed miserably and everything died, they probably tried to grow something stupid and exotic like tomatoes. I wouldn't be surprised if they went into a jungle and found monkeys that could like learn how to cultivate beans and potatoes. It's not that hard. And those are the two highest calorie things that you can grow within reason because corn's really difficult. So you do that and like every morning hash browns and there you go. Boy, if you get 130 your calories per day with just like, you can take 20 pounds of potatoes, which is right now, $10-15. And within a season with very poor soil and just like $50 worth of gardening supplies and a little bit of, straw on top or mulch, you can have 200-300 pounds of potatoes pretty easily, even if you screw it up pretty badly. 300 pounds of, can you even eat 1 pound of potatoes per day for 300 days? And I've seen people do that on a plot of like 10 feet by 10 feet, okay? You just don't get the output of really high stuff like that. And beans, they just preserve themselves over the winter. So do potatoes to an extent. They dry themselves and you cook them later. I mean, if I could grow rice here, I would do it. Get ready to supplement just the things you need, not just because, oh my gosh, there's no food. Because if there's no food, people are going to be shooting each other, okay? They're going to steal from your garden. But if you're like, I really don't want to work another job, or I just really don't have any options, I'm already working 2 jobs, or my girlfriend just left me and there goes, that side of the income or whatever. Whatever's going on with you, if you at least can cover food. I mean, usually number 1 is lodging in people's budgets, and number 2 is like right around food, internet, and transportation. So you knock out food and start effectively getting it for next to free. Oh boy, and if you're just like, no, I can't garden or I have zero interest in it, I'm just not going to do it, well then get really good at cooking like vegetable stir fries or just learn a bunch of good tasty rice dishes, because you could cook a meal instead of like, $9, you could cook a meal for 25 cents. I mean, eggs, rice, and a little bit of soy sauce, you got a meal. Throw some carrots in it, like vegetable stir fries with stir fry noodles, come on. High-end ramen dishes, you can make the broth with like anything. These are restaurant quality things that I think are very, very low skill on the cooking range here. So I'm not just saying don't go out to eat, buy it locally, make it locally, pack it yourself and buy in bulk and, bring a sandwich to work every day. That's good too. But if you learn to make dirt cheap stuff, especially with dry goods, so we're talking the big ones, oatmeal, beans, flour, sugar, salt, and to an extent cooking oil. All of those things, they're not going to spoil at the speed of a banana. Okay, you're looking on the years scale, upward of 5+ years for those things. So if you go spend right now about $24, that's about all it is, for a 50-pound bag of rice, not only is that like, I think it's like 60, 70,000 calories, upwards of 100,000 calories or something absurd like that, but it's so flexible, you can make all kinds of stuff with it, and man, you could start making 50-cent meals and then stay exactly at your job, not have to do anything else, not have to pick up a second job, not have to learn how to sell on eBay, not have to do anything harder other than adjust your diet slightly. So just, you need to do these things now just in case. And if things get better, keep doing it or don't. I mean, it's just this like, don't be reactive, be proactive. You don't want to be the person in line at the gas station or in line outside the grocery store. You're already too late. You want to be the person who said, I had masks before COVID, I had hand sanitizer before COVID, and I had enough toilet paper because I just called it a priority and made a storage spot for it and bought some. You've got to get out ahead of these things, not just saying because, oh, the end of the world, ooh, World War III, ooh, a giant hurricane. No, it's just like economic badness. That happens all the time. Even in America, it happens all the time. I mean, let's see. Interest rates were crazy. They were like 20% in the 80s. Then we had the dot-com crash in, the late 90s, early 2000s, where a bunch of dot-com stuff fell over. Then we had the housing collapse because of, bad securities, housing stuff, real estate getting out of control and nobody doing anything about it, 2008. Then we had the COVID, restrictions and all the economic slowdown because of that. And then we have inflation because of almost exclusively Biden and the Democrats printing money irresponsibly. And the Republicans had to keep voting for the debt increase. And then, the war in Russia, now look where we're at. What is that? One giant devastating economic event every 10 years? I don't know much about economics in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, but there was probably something going on every 10 years going back to the Great Depression, okay? We are not as stable as you might think it is. So you might say, oh, this video got off topic. First of all, this is a podcast. I'm going long format no matter what, and I was at 30 minutes. I'm like, fine, I'll add on a second topic. But also, you're still here watching, so hey, just saying, thumbs up, subscribe. But also, I don't just say, you should be worried this is bad, and here's why. Bye, have a nice day. Not going to give you any way to mitigate it or anything to do about it, or I'm not just going to throw in 30 seconds of, here's something I copied off of some blog somewhere about things you can maybe do. No, we're talking specifics. I'm talking every attack vector. I'm talking everything you can do to mitigate this. Everything, every option. Not just, here's one way, do it my way because I said so, because that's all the research I felt like doing. No. That ain't how we do it on this channel. As much information as fast as possible. And honestly, a lot of you have been saying you need to put this stuff on a podcast platform. I'm looking into it. I think if I got this on Spotify, looking at like the top 10 right now, I'm not saying I'm just automatically going to go into them. I think I would need to write more of a script and outline, but like I said, full-time job right now. That's messing with the workflow. But yeah, I mean, in my own totally unbiased opinion, I think this channel does a pretty darn good job of really covering stuff in a useful, realistic, practical way instead of just alarmist fluff and stuff that I'm saying it because you want to hear it and then no actual substance, no practical steps, nothing, just alarmist nonsense and oh yeah, the government is bad, guys, right? Leave a like, give me money. I don't even have sponsors on this channel, bro, like for real. I barely even have sponsors on my other 3 channels. Oh yeah, I'm not new to this. My main channel is 50k subs. But hey, subscribe to this one because this channel is hitting huge growth. And if this becomes high income enough that I can replace my other job, this is soon going to become the #1 prepper channel and like survival info channel on the entire internet. Because, well, quite frankly, the other ones aren't very good. So I know it's biased and self-serving, but if you want to watch the other content on my channel, I think it's pretty good or I wouldn't have bothered to make it. And I very carefully picked out the topic for this entire channel because I knew I could cover it pretty effectively and I didn't like how other people were doing it, which ironically is also why I started my main channel. And that caught me by surprise how quickly it took off. So there is definitely more to come. I am definitely making this my main side hustle, mostly because my other job, I'm not loving it right now. And it's a 1-year contract that may or may not get renewed, and my main channel is dying because it's a single topic channel that never was very smart. I should have diversified earlier. So that's the state of it on my end, but like I said, I think this channel is going to get better and better and better. It's doing better. It's making more money, which means I throw more attention at it. I wish that wasn't how it worked, but because of my economic situation, it just is, okay? I'd love to say I'm not here for the money. I'm partially not. If I had enough money, I would still make this channel, make the content. But for now, it's all about I got to put in the effort to pay off a lot of debt. I owed the IRS a mountain of money because of a mistake last year, and all the money I've made in this entire year has pretty much gone towards that, so yeah, if you think I'm sitting here saying, you know, oh, you need to guard your economics, I'm probably worse off than all of you. And I'm still out here trying to follow my own steps, taking it one day at a time, doing what I can, working after my job, doing this, doing that. I'm still selling on eBay. I'm still picking up new jobs, new side hustles, pursuing other opportunities. And you know what? It always seems bad until you're doing it. And then you're like, you know what? It wasn't that bad. People like to be nice and comfortable where they're at and they don't like change. I get it, but like once you get there, you're like, okay, I am glad I did this. It was time to make a change. I didn't like where I was working. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. Maybe I do need to press for the raise. Maybe I should put myself out there and have a discussion with my manager, no matter how awkward it might be and how it might backfire, about giving me a raise or making me a manager. You know, just get out and do it, because right now it's not just like, oh, I think you should deserve it and woo, hooray for you, motivational speaker. It's like, no, because the economy is doing awful right now and you need to put yourself in the best possible position, best industry, best amount of resources, best money in the bank, stuff in storage, stuff you might need. Just cover your butt, start now, preferably get a time machine and go start 2 years ago. So that was the diesel shortage, why it's happening, why it might get worse, why it, I guess, might get better, but probably not, and where I think things are going in the next couple of years, especially the next 3 years. Maybe it will get that bad, maybe it won't. I know a weather event will just spiral everything out of control, so watch for that. But in the meantime, really, really look at where you're at, look at your situation, look at your debts, look at your assets, and just think, does there need to be a change one way or another, or am I good? And like I said, if you're smart enough to be watching this video all the way through and you're smart enough to watch this channel, 1, you might as well subscribe, and 2, good for you, this is already the first step. So we got more gear reviews, more long shelf life food reviews. I'm going to see if I could eat 2,000 calories worth of rice in a day without throwing up. That's coming up. Got all kinds of crazy content all over the place on this channel, so subscribe if you don't want to miss it. Go watch my other content, and I'll see you guys next time.